What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Power Rankings. Real quick, just want to say thank you guys so much for all the support you've shown on this channel so far. I only started it like 3 weeks to a month ago, but I've had a ton of fun making these videos, making this content every single week, making my short videos every single day. You guys have shown a ton of love on those, way more than I possibly could have expected. So just want to say thank you guys so much. If you could hit that subscribe button, I really appreciate it. It helps out the channel. And without further ado, let's jump right into Power Rankings. All right, we are going to start out at number 10 with the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a team that I did not think would be on the list this early into the season. I can definitely understand if you guys maybe would disagree with me putting them in the top 10 so early because of the fact that they played the Raiders and the Panthers. But there were a couple teams that fell off the list due to bad losses in the last couple weeks. And trying to shuffle around some of these teams, considering how they've played so far early in the season, I thought this team is looking like a top 10 defense and maybe even a top 10 offense, which is a huge surprise considering the lack of weapons. Of course, Justin Herbert is a great quarterback, but I think the biggest surprise for this team so far this season is J.K. Dobbins. He's had injuries pretty much every year of his career so far, obviously starting with the Baltimore Ravens. He's looked incredible, and he's maybe a top 10 fantasy running back right now. And I think we all expected Jim Harbaugh to want to run the ball. I didn't know that they'd be this effective doing it this early in the season. That offensive line is really gelling. Joe Alt looks great, obviously. Top 5 pick. I think everybody expected him to be great. But this team is looking really good. Justin Herbert's not doing what he did under Brandon Staley, throwing for 50 attempts and 350 yards, but I think this formula is better. Now, like I said before, they did beat the Panthers, so I think it's not obviously an impressive win. But the Raiders win in week 1 is looking a little bit better now that they've beaten the Ravens. And I think, speaking of the Ravens, that's one of the teams that, surprise, surprise, has fallen off the list due to a poor start. The other ones being the Dolphins, obviously due to Tua's unfortunate injury and their loss against the Bills, and the Dallas Cowboys after they got absolutely shellacked in their own building. So I think, considering some of the teams that could be around this spot, the Chargers, the Steelers, I just felt like this was the right team to put here. Let me know if you guys agree. I think there could be a number of teams that are kind of bouncing up and down in this top 10 area over the next couple weeks. Number 9 is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. This is another team that is new to the list in week 3. They are coming off of a huge win against the LA Rams. Now, it's another situation where it's a very fair argument to say they're playing a team that certainly wasn't at their peak strength. The Rams are obviously in a different universe than the Carolina Panthers, but they do have a ton of injuries, especially on offense. Cooper Kupp went out in the middle of this game, so I could definitely understand the argument that, people think it's maybe not that impressive of a win. But what was really impressive was Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, did they hear the comments about how Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't get the ball in week 1 or what? Because, man, he had like 2 touchdowns, I think, in the first quarter maybe, or like just right off the bat, Kyler was just going to him all day. Kyler's legs look incredible. He looks healthy and fresh. He's running all over the field, dodging defenders, bobbing and weaving, and it's like nobody can catch him. He's just making plays. It's like, even against the Bills, they looked pretty good, and I thought that maybe wasn't that impressive of a loss for them to hang into that game like that. But now looking at where the Bills are through 2 weeks, I think that the fact that the Cardinals hung in that game pretty close and scored a good amount of points is a bit more impressive than we might have thought. So I think this Cardinals team belongs in the top 10. Kyler looks great. Marvin Harrison Jr. looks legit. Maybe, he just week 1 jitters, first NFL game. Week 2 absolutely popped off. I think this offense could put up a ton of points. So I'll be taking their overs a lot this year. Number 8 is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is a team that is coming off of a loss against Kirk Cousins in primetime. So, that's never a good thing. But they really were in position to win this game, and just a couple of really bad mistakes down the stretch. Now, you could say it was a bad call to throw the ball. Saquon should have dropped it, or shouldn't have dropped it. I think both things are true. I think you should run the ball in that situation, especially with Saquon as your running back, Jalen as your quarterback, just run a read option or something. I don't think there's any need to bring a pass into play there. Saquon's also got to catch that ball if you do decide to go that route. No doubt about it. I think either way, the Eagles win the game if they just keep the clock running there. I think, 40 seconds, another 40 seconds off the clock. The Falcons don't have any timeouts. It brings it down to about a minute. Now, the Falcons did get down the field pretty fast and score, obviously, but it just puts so much more pressure when you run that clock down under a minute. The offense isn't. They're just not feeling as comfortable in that type of situation. When you give a team almost 2 minutes to go down the field, Kirk's getting off the bench thinking, yeah, we got this, no problem. So I still think this is a really good team. Obviously, the Falcons are going to be a competitive team all year too, so it's not the worst loss. We'll see how they bounce back. I mean, Jalen Hurts was running a little bit more in this game. It looked like he was maybe starting to get healthier, but that offense just hasn't gotten going the way it has, the way it was in 2022 in the past couple of years. So I don't think this team is, the juggernaut that they were in 2022 and the start of 2023. It's just not going to be that team anymore. They're going to have to find other ways to win. Obviously, I have them at number 8. I still think they're a good football team, and a lot of talent all over the field on both sides of the ball, but they're going to have to find other ways to win. And obviously AJ Brown was out, so if they can just get healthy on offense, I think that'll definitely help out a little bit too. We'll go to number 7. That's going to be the New Orleans Saints, another first-time team to the list, and they jump all the way up to 7 because holy crap, was this an impressive win. And they're obviously, I know it was against the Panthers, but so was their Week 1 win. I mean, they had that stat that I put out in one of my short videos a couple days ago, 15 straight scores to start the season. I mean, beating the greatest show on turf, St. Louis Rams, by 4. I mean, Derek Carr, are we kidding me? Alvin Kamara looks like 2018 Alvin Kamara. It's just like, I didn't expect this. Obviously, Clint Kubiak, new offensive coordinator, spent a ton of time around the Shanahans growing up. So he's part of that, Kyle Shanahan, obviously his dad, Gary Kubiak, kind of tree. Really brilliant offensive coordinator. This offense looks great. I've never been a big Derek Carr supporter. Anybody who knows me knows, I've definitely had my fair share of criticism for him as a quarterback. But he looks phenomenal. I mean, Rashid Shaheed is just taking the top off of every defense. Nobody can cover him. Guy looks like the fastest guy in the league other than Tyreek Hill. Somebody, just play a deep safety at this point. I mean, geez. But I think this team is really impressive. Their defense is also really good. They've got a lot of talent, a lot of real just NFL dudes on the line. I think this is a team that could surprise a lot of people and continue to win a lot of games, could even compete for their division. I think one thing that's really shaping up to be interesting is the NFC South looks like a lot better of a division than I think people thought it was coming into the season. I think we got 3 legit teams and then the Panthers in that division. So Saints, great win. Always hilarious to watch the Cowboys get absolutely stomped. So we'll see if they could keep it going into week number 3. Number 6 is going to be the Detroit Lions. They are coming off of a home loss to the Bucs. Jared Goff did not look great in this one. They threw the ball a billion times. Dan Campbell is fake punting and having it work from his own 5-yard line. I mean, absolute just cinema. Only Detroit Lions things occurring in this game. But this was such a weird game because it felt like there should have been a million points, because every time the game cut back from commercial, it was just like the Lions were driving in the red zone, the Bucs were driving in the red zone, Baker, Jared Goff dropping back to pass, finding guys over the middle, and then you look up and the final score is 20-16, and it's like, what the heck just happened? There was a lot of turnovers in this game. Jared Goff had some bad interceptions. This Lions team is still really good. Their offensive line is incredible. I don't think they lean on the run game enough. We saw what they did against the Rams in that overtime and, down the stretch of that game. When they really lean on that offensive line and let Gibbs and Montgomery get going behind it, they're pretty tough to stop. I think they just need to kind of stick with that. Obviously, you don't have the Lions without the craziness that comes with it with Dan Campbell. So, it is what it is, but I just like to see this team stay a little bit more disciplined at times. We'll see if Ben Johnson still has that kind of hype around his name at the end of the year. If this offense kind of takes a dip, people definitely gave him a lot of criticism for not taking a head coaching job in the offseason when he was like the hottest name on the market. So we'll see how that goes. I think this Lions team is maybe going to just probably hover around this spot the whole season if they don't really change anything, because they're going to be good enough to beat pretty much everybody outside of the top 5, and then the top 5 I just don't really see them hanging with a lot of those teams. But you never know. They could turn it around down the stretch. Injuries, anything could happen. So we will jump into number 5, and that's going to be the team that beat the Detroit Lions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is probably the team that has, I don't want to say surprised, because I knew they were a good team, but they've just been so impressive through the first 2 weeks of the season, and especially Baker. Baker is traditionally somebody who I look at as more of like a wild, like, I don't want to use the term Brett Favre type of quarterback, because he's obviously not at that level, but just in terms of the play style and sort of the recklessness might not be the right term, but just a little bit of a flair for the position, if you will. But he hasn't done that this year. He's been incredible. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin look phenomenal. I had Chris Godwin's over on receiving yards. He hit it in the first quarter. It was just, I mean, their defense is really good. Todd Bowles, obviously head coach of this team, really good DC. They have a great scheme. They have a lot of talented dudes that people kind of forget about, that some of them left over from the Brady years, but they've drafted well too. Rachaad White looks really good. Bucky Irving behind him, that's a really good running back duo. That offensive line, Tristan Wirfs, I mean, they got some dudes on that line. They can move people around. And they just haven't made mistakes, really, I think is what's been the most impressive. Now we'll see if they have the firepower to beat some of the teams above them on this list, and some of the really good teams that coming down the stretch are going to be contending for Super Bowls. I'm not expecting them to be a 17-0 team, obviously, but I do think that this is a team that could contend. I didn't think they could. I think my opinion of this team coming into the season was really happy for Baker Mayfield the way last year ended. They got a lot of talent, but they're not like a serious threat, and they've proved me wrong so far. I mean, man, they've just been so impressive. I can't say enough good things about the team, and I honestly would love to see them jump further up the list. We'll jump into number 4. That is the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills started the season as the number 10 team on this list, I believe. And I kind of thought that with the loss of Diggs and some of their, Gabe Davis weapons, loss of Matt Milano in training camp, like this team would definitely take a dip, because they've always, they rely on Josh Allen, but they rely a lot on their talent around the, both sides of the ball. Because, this isn't the 49ers with Kyle Shanahan scheming it up. Not that Sean McDermott's a bad coach, but they just don't have a ton of, it's Josh Allen making plays. There's not a ton of creativity with this team. But Josh Allen has just been incredible so far this season, which I obviously should have expected that. It's what he does. I'm always super high on Josh Allen. He gets his fair share of criticism, which I understand, and it's certainly deserved in some cases, but most of that criticism comes around his playoff losses to the Chiefs, and every time he's played Mahomes in the playoffs, he's been brilliant, and it's come down to just a really bad break at the end of the game. Maybe his defense not being able to close it out, obviously the coin toss situation that changed the rule, but he's been phenomenal so far this season, not turning the ball over. He's running all over the field like he always does. I think this is, I thought maybe there was a chance that the window for the Bills is not closed, because obviously it's never going to be closed with Allen, but it's at least, wasn't as ajar as it was in the past 3 years. But I think I'm wrong about that. I think this team is going to definitely be contending with the Chiefs for the AFC Championship come January. So really happy for them, really happy for Josh Allen the way the season started. We'll see if they can keep going. Number 3, the San Francisco 49ers. This team was number 1 on last week's list, coming off their win over the Jets when they absolutely shellacked Aaron Rodgers, which is just always makes me so happy. But One thing that makes me even happier than watching Aaron Rodgers lose is watching the Vikings win. And the Vikings, surprisingly, got an awesome win over the 49ers. The game was, by the score, it was close, 23-17. But the Vikings kind of dominated all three phases of this game, weirdly, and didn't really build up a huge margin. They had that Aaron Jones fumble on the 1 yard line. If he doesn't fumble that, they're up by 20 heading into the fourth quarter. And that's just not a game at that point. The game's over. So, that kind of let the 49ers back into the game a little bit. But the Vikings defense was great. This team, the 49ers, they're going to have games like this. Brock Purdy is still a good quarterback. He threw a couple picks. One of them wasn't so good. I just always think with the 49ers, there's no matter how many losses they have, like this team's always going to bounce back in a big way. Kyle Shanahan is such a good coach. The offense is never going to really, it doesn't really matter. Injuries, everything. They're the better at weathering the storm than anybody. I don't want to say it doesn't matter. It's just that this team is so well put together to compete late into seasons that I think they're going to be fine, and they're going to beat a lot of teams. There was an interesting stat that came out that Brock Purdy is 14-0 against the entire NFC except the Vikings, where he's 0-2. So Skull Nation, baby, let's go. We beat the Niners when it counts, or when it doesn't count. Sorry. Maybe if we could actually just get to the NFC Championship and we see them then, who knows? Maybe we go to the Super Bowl. Sam Darnold, slinging Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl. Who wouldn't love to see it? But yeah, this 49ers team will bounce back. They dropped down from 1 to 3 for the loss, but they're still a great team. Not really much else to say. Number 2 is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, as I'm recording this, you guys are in the process of absolutely flaming me for the short video I posted today about the pass interference call, which is just absolutely hilarious. That it's a little bit of a troll, because I know it's probably pass interference, but it's just the fact that they get the call when they need it at every time. And also, I had Bengals money line with a profit boost, so it's definitely a bit annoying. But man, this team just finds ways to win. Obviously, it's Mahomes, but it's a little bit. I think I said this in the last video too. It's a bit Brady-esque, because as the Chiefs evolve, they just find different ways to win, which is the same thing that Brady did with the Patriots. The teams over the course of 20 years, you're talking about a ton of evolution with the team. And I think we've seen that in the past couple of years, some evolution with the Chiefs, where they're starting to be a little bit more defensive. Obviously, Steve Spagnuolo leading that defense. They got some guys on that defense, by the way. I mean, Trent McDuffie, Chris Jones, George Karlaftis. That is a really underrated unit in terms of talent. And it's hard to say they're underrated because they won the Super Bowl, but people just talk about Mahomes. They don't talk about the defense enough. And, rightfully so. Mahomes is great. But, the point is, it's not really the same team that it was when they won their first Super Bowl in 2019 with Tyreek Hill obviously gone. And Travis Kelce does not look like 2019, 2022, 2021 Travis Kelce. Where he was just finding the soft spot in the defense on every single route, always open. Now we got him catching a 5-yard pass on 2nd and 8, and that's when they go to Taylor Swift in the booth, because that's the only time they got the opportunity to show her, and she's going crazy for Kelsey's 5-yard catch. It's come on, haven't we seen this enough? Jeez. But this team is going to be top 3 all season in the power rankings. Don't expect them to drop out. Last season, they had a weird thing in the middle of the season where they started losing some games. Maybe they'll do it again, but they're going to be contending in January. I think we all know that. It's Mahomes. I mean, obviously, barring a Mahomes injury, which, never rooting for injuries. But I would like to see, somebody come in and beat them down the stretch. Maybe it's the Bills. Or maybe it's the team that is number 1 on the list, that started the season number 1 on the list. They dropped down last week because their win wasn't super impressive. But because the 49ers lost, they bounced back up to number 1, and that is the Houston Texans. And man, do I love me some CJ Stroud. He is just phenomenal. In terms of leadership for a young quarterback, I don't think I've seen anybody be so comfortable and so poised already, just in year 2. He had it in year 1. But just the fact that it's year 2 and he looks this poised and just is such a good leader. And now you add some veterans into that room with Mixon, and, Diggs is not the greatest leader, historically, but just, veteran presence. I think it's just such a great unit. That offense, I mean, Joe Mixon looks like the best he's ever looked, maybe, which is crazy because he's taken so many carries over the years, just as an absolute workhorse for the Bengals, and he's doing the same thing in Houston, and he looks great. He's still healthy. He's running the rock really well. Now this wasn't like a crazy impressive win over the Bears. I think the Bears have a better defensive unit than people kind of want to give them credit for. Um, but Caleb Williams looks really bad, so I can't really say that it's a super impressive win. But as long as they keep winning games and finding ways to win, I'm going to keep having them, number one, number two at the top of the power rankings because I just believe that much in the talent of this team and D'Amico Ryans as a coach. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I think their defense is only going to get better. They've got a lot of talent. Will Anderson hasn't really popped a ton since he's been drafted. He's shown flashes. I think he's going to have, some opportunities to break out. Danielle Hunter has looked really good. He looked really good against the Bears on Sunday night. So, thanks for stealing him from the Vikings. Luckily, we got some good replacements. Pat Jones looks great for us, as a side note. But, yeah, this Texans team, they look absolutely phenomenal, and I'm really excited to see where they can take this thing through the rest of the season. All right, that'll do it for Week 3 Power Rankings. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's been a ton of support in the first 3 weeks to like a month of this channel. I really appreciate all the love you guys have shown. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel before you go. Make sure you drop a like. Check out my Third and Goal podcast. We just started it. It's going to be releasing every Saturday. Leave a comment on that video if there are any topics you'd like me to discuss, and we'll see how many of them we could get to next Saturday before Week 3. And if you haven't, take a look at some of my best bets. I went 3-0, just saying. Maybe I'll win you some money if you check out that video. But yeah, that's going to do it, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Best of luck on Sundays when you bet the house.